Hey, what's up guys? This is Mitch. In this video, I'm gonna talk about how to play Outlaw Rogue in Dragonflight 10.0. Hope you guys enjoy it and find it helpful. With talents with two very different playstyles. One is keep it rolling, the other one is the ambush build. And they both have a single target build, and they both have the M+ builds. And under the M+ builds, for keep it rolling, you can play keep it rolling with RC, which is resounding clarity, or keep it rolling with dance. And for hidden OP, you can play a version of that with dance or with T. In general, any build with dance is a little bit more single target focused. For keep it rolling, your pure single target build is gonna look like something like this. So we take keep it rolling obviously with dance, Audacity. But there's some variations you can do. Let's say if you want a little bit more utility and such. For example, if you really like grapple, you don't like only using shadow step, you can drop weapon master and take grapple. It's a very small loss. You can do that if you want. It's the same theory for all the other single builds. You can always drop a small DPS node, not for some utility. And then for ambush build, the single target talent is going to look like this. So again, we're taking dance, but then in the outlaw tree we're going down the left side and take hidden OP. And if you want a little bit more utility, again, for example, you want to have Shadowdance, you can drop these two and take Trynexx and Shadowdance. And then for M+, or any build with two or more targets, for keep it rolling, there's two different variations. The first one is keep it rolling with resounding clarity. So if you want grapple, you can take grapple, drop weapon master like that, or maybe if you want a little bit more damage, because ambidexterity is not bad in cleave, it's roughly like 1 to 2% in cleave. If you want that, you can drop hit and run and the extended range under Blade Fury and take this one for a little bit more damage. And then for the other build in M+, for keep it rolling, is gonna be with dance. This one is a little bit more single target damage than RC, but they're all very close. And then for ambush build, there are two different builds in M+. The first one is hidden OP with T. And again, if you want a little bit more utility, you can drop some small DPS nodes for utility. Like you can drop this one to take movement speed. You can drop these two for something like evasion or even numbing, stuff like that. And then lastly, for the ambush build, this is the last tree for M+. We take it on OP and dance. Also, I've had a lot of people asking me like which build is the best. It's really hard to tell, especially before you get tier sets. Before you get your tier sets, they are all very close to the point where it doesn't even matter. You can play whatever build you enjoy, and once you get your tier sets, the ambush builds are likely gonna be pulling ahead for a little bit more. but it also depends on your stats and your gears. So there's no absolute answers. If you really want the correct answer, you have to do your own sim with your own gears. For stats, crit is generally our best stats. Verse is also really close. They're both really good stats for us, following by Mastery and Haze. But this heavily depends on what build you're playing, because in generally speaking, Mastery is a little bit more AoE focused. It has more value in AoE, and when you're doing single target, Mastery tend to lose a little bit more value. And then for Haze, keep it rolling builds, especially with RC, it has lower value, but if you're playing the ambush, any ambush build, any hidden OP builds, they usually need a little bit more haze comparing to any keep it rolling builds. So once again, there's no absolute answer or any magical breakpoint that we're looking for. The best way to find out is do your own sims. So before I go into any rotation or any things about doing damage, I just want to talk about like how Outlaw feels in general. In case you're very new to this spec, Outlaw in general is a very reactive class. Its rotation is like very dynamic. It's not like every single time when you do your damage, your rotation is gonna be different. Because there's a lot of procs and you need to react to them accordingly, and we have quite a lot of cooldowns, especially when it comes to the keep it rolling builds. So essentially it's pretty much like, it's like a decision tree, you know, like you have this, yes and no. If that's a yes, what do you do? Yes and no. And it's just something like this. So essentially, like when you're doing a rotation, you are constantly making very small decisions depending on how your toolkit or your procs are reacting. So keep that in mind, and we are gonna start talking about like rotations or our abilities. Now, let's talk about Restless Blade. This passive is one of the most important passive in our toolkit, and this passive is also one of the biggest reasons why we never want to hold our CDs. Okay, it is very important. Okay, whatever, fuck it, I got it. And then because, let's say for most of the other classes, if you're holding your CDs for 5 seconds, what do you lose? You lose 5 seconds value, your cooldowns, right? But because of this passive, the opportunity cost of holding CDs that are affected by this passive is way more than the 5 seconds itself. Because in that 5 seconds window, we are gonna be constantly spending combo points in combat. Well, let's say if I'm holding my CDs for 10 seconds, but during that 5 seconds window, I spend, let's say, 5 combo points. So in fact, we are losing 15 seconds of our value of our cooldowns. So keep this in mind. And the rotation of keep it rolling, of any keep it rolling builds, tend to optimize this passive very well. But for the ambush builds, they tend to waste a lot of combo points because of the nature of its rotation. But it's proven to be a gain even if we're wasting combo points. So be aware of that as well. And there are some very rare cases where we do want to hold our CDs, which I will be mentioning later in the guide. So now, let's talk about finishing rules. For these finishing rules, we want to follow them 24/7, regardless of which build you are playing. And we do have 1 or 2 rules which are only viable for ambush builds. So in general, in most cases, we want to finish at max combo point. However, if any of the following conditions are met, we want to use our finishers at max -1 combo point. It doesn't matter which finisher you're casting, it applies to all our finishers, including Dispatch, Between the Eyes, and also Slice and Dice. So, if you have Broadside active, then you want to finish at max -1. If you have Ruthless Precision, which is the crit buff from Roll the Bones, and you are talented in the Seal Fate, if you have both, then you want to finish at max -1 as well. And if you are at max Fender Hammer stacks, which is 6, you also want to finish at max -1. And then for ambush build, any ambush builds, if you are at 3 or 6 Fender Hammer stacks, you also want to finish at max -1. And then, obviously, lastly, if you are talented into ER, which is this talent right here, if you land on the Animal Charge combo point, you want to finish on it as well. Boom. Okay, now let's talk about some ground rules that we have to follow for all the builds. Regardless of what builds you're playing, we have to follow these rules. So we have to activate our Blade Fury as long as there's more than 1 target. Keep it up at all times. And then we want to refresh our Blade Fury at the very last second. Refreshing it early is a DPS loss. However, right before you enter your Dreadblade or Shadowdance window, technically you can force a refresh, even the last one still have some duration in it, but this is completely optional. And then for cooldowns, we want to use our cooldowns as soon as possible, as long as the conditions are met, which I will be talking about spell by spell later in the guide, or unless specified. I think there's only 2 cases where we want to hold our CDs, and I will be mentioning this as well. And lastly, we only press our pistol shot when we have Fender Hammer stacks. I'm gonna talk about when and how to use Roll the Bones. So first rule, obviously, we want to cast Roll the Bones when we don't have any Roll the Bones buffs, because we want to keep it up at all times. And second, we want to keep any single buff of Broadside, True Bearing, and Skull and Crossbones. And we also want to keep all the double buffs except the combination of Grand Melee and Buried Treasure. If you get these 2 from your roll, you want to roll them away ASAP. However, on top of that, in all the builds that we are playing, we are talented into Loaded Dice. It basically allows you to guarantee a double buff after you press your AR. So if we have that buff activated, which is gonna look like this. So I have my AR of CD, I press it, I have my Loaded Dice activated. So my next roll is guaranteed to be at 2 buffs, like that. So if you have Loaded Dice active, you want to roll away any single buff. We want to roll away any single buff, including all these that we mentioned. On top of that, we would want to reroll any double buffs that does not contain any of Broadside, True Bearing, or Skull and Crossbones. So if you have Loaded Dice active, and let's say the buffs that you have currently is Broadside and Ruthless Precision, then you want to keep it and then wait until they expire and then you roll again. But if you have Ruler's Precision plus Buried Treasure, and you have loaded as active, although I just said we want to keep that because it's not this combination, right? If we have Ruler's Precision and Buried Treasure, in this condition, we want to keep it. But if we have loaded dice active, then we want to roll it away because that combination does not contain any of Broadside, True Bearing, or Skull and Crossbones. You're probably aware that, especially for Keep It Rolling builds, or maybe the single target build in the hidden OP talent, we have two sources of buffs. One is from rolling itself, and two, it's count the odds. They might look like the same to you, but then in fact they behave a little bit differently. And if you are aware of that and you play around it, it's very beneficial, especially when you are playing with Keep It Rolling. So I did explain how this works in my Shadowdance guide, and I apologize for that. I'm too lazy to make another video or another clip for that again. So if you want to know about that, go to my Shadowdance guide, and then in the video description, look for the Roll the Bones versus Count the Odds interaction, which is here at 9:25. And then this section is only like maybe 2-3 minutes long. It's not super long. And then watch that. And then while you're watching it, keep that in mind. Buffs that extended by Keep It Rolling behaves like Count the Odds. So essentially, Count the Odds buffs and Keep It Rolling buffs behaves the same way, which is different from the buffs that we get from actually pressing Roll the Bone. And if you're aware of that, then it's very, very beneficial. And this also affects how we play around Keep It Rolling as well, which I will explain right away. After you watch the clip, there's something more that I want to clarify, which is how the buffs work if your Roll the Bones is overriding your Count the Odds buffs. For example, in this video, you can see I have two buffs, they're in white. These two buffs are from Count the Odds. And this green buff is from Roll the Bone itself. So it's easy to tell these two behave the same way, and this one behave like Roll the Bones, and these two behave like Count the Odds. And later in the clip, you see right here, I pressed my Keep It Rolling, I put it on cooldown, I extended these three buffs, and now all three of them are behaving like Count the Odds buffs. Because like I said earlier, Keep It Rolling buffs, buffs that get extended by Keep It Rolling behave the same way as Count the Odds buffs. So these three now behave the same way. So right now, if I press Roll the Bones, what's gonna happen is I either get some new buffs from pressing Roll the Bones, or if my Roll the Bones, let's say, because this buff with 41 seconds, it's Grand Melee. So if I press Roll the Bones and that roll gives me the same buff, let's say it gives me Grand Melee, what is gonna happen is it's gonna overwrite this Count the Odds buff, which is Grand Melee, and it will start behaving like Roll the Bones buffs again. So look at this. So these three are Count the Odds, and then I press Roll the Bones again, and that roll gave me a Grand Melee, and it override this buff, which was extended by Keep It Rolling, and now it will behave like Roll the Bones buff. In other words, because this buff is 36 seconds, and these two are roughly like 25-26. So in this case, if I roll again, what's gonna happen is everything, whatever buffs I had, is gonna get all reset and re-rolled. So keep that in mind. So with all those information that we have, we can now start talking about when do we want to use our Keep It Rolling. For Keep It Rolling, we want to use it when we have any 3 of Broadside, True Bearing, Ruthless Precision, or Skull and Crossbones. Technically, you can also use it when you only have 2 of them. Using it when you only have 2 of them is roughly a 0.5% DPS loss, but you can play around it and adjust accordingly, depend on the combat timer, is there any downtimes in between packs, stuff like that. Also, something that I like to do before I press my Keep It Rolling is, let's say for example, we have 25 seconds of Broadside, 25 seconds of Skull and Crossbones, and maybe 10 seconds of Ruthless Precision. The white ones, it's Count the Odds. These two, the green ones, are from Roll the Bones. So in this case, technically, it does meet the condition that I just talked about because we have 3 out of these 4, right? However, what I like to do is I wait until the very last second of Ruthless Precision so I can buy myself time to fish for another Count the Odds proc. Because if let's say I wait until the very last second of it, maybe I'll get a proc and then I'll get a True Bearing it as well. And then in this case, my Keep It Rolling is still gonna be the same, but I get more value out of my Keep It Rolling. However, if I had 25 seconds of Broadside, 25 seconds of Skull and Crossbone, and I have maybe 10 seconds of True Bearing, in this case, usually what I do is I press it right away as long as none of the buffs are more than 30 seconds. Because 1, Keep It Rolling buffs will never extend your buff for more than 60 seconds, which means, let's say I'm just making stuff up, assuming you have a 40 seconds Broadside, and if you press your Keep It Rolling, it's only gonna go up to 60. It is not going bypass that number. So remember that. So let's go back to this case. In this case, I usually like to press my Keep It Rolling right away because technically Broadside, True Bearing, and Skull and Crossbones are the buffs that are the strongest to us, and with this combination, we can generate a lot of combo points. So if we press it earlier, as long as none of the buffs are over 30 seconds, we still get a lot of value, we generate a lot of combo points, and we can ramp down the cooldown of our next Keep It Rolling. Then, after we press our Keep It Rolling, because of the Roll the Bones, Count the Odds, and Keep It Rolling buffs interaction that I mentioned earlier, let's say with 55 seconds of Broadside, 55 seconds of Skull and Crossbones, and we have 45 seconds of Ruthless Precision. In this case, you probably say that, hey, I can safely press my Roll the Bones again, and maybe I can look for some other buffs, right? It's only partially correct, because after we use our Keep It Rolling, there's some conditions that we have to meet before we press our second Roll the Bones. So the conditions are, so we're gonna talk about like when to press Roll the Bones after Keep It Rolling. So we are gonna press our roll the bones after keep it rolling when all the buffs are below 39 seconds and we do not have all of broadside, true bearing, and skull and crossbones. Now, the reason why we set 39 seconds is because the buffs that we can get from roll the bones can only go up to 39 seconds. So imagine in this case, after I press my keep it rolling, if I press roll the bones again, and if that roll gives me a broadside, what's gonna happen is this one is gonna be gone and get replaced by 39 seconds broadside. So we're losing value out of our broadside. So keep them in mind and remember to follow all these rules before you press your roll the bones after keep it rolling. So also, like, let's say you got super lucky, okay? If you're super lucky, let's say you have a 6 buffs. Doesn't matter, I can make up numbers. 50, 30, 30, 40, 45, 45, okay? Let's say you have all these buffs after you press your keep it rolling, then obviously you want to wait until any of broadside, true bearing, or skull and crossbones to fall off. When they're gone, then you can press your roll the bones again so you can have a chance to get it back. Now here is a clip to show you how exactly you execute that. So this is pretty much the same clip I showed you guys earlier. So what happened in this poll was, right here, I had I'm sorry if this is really confusing, but this is how I track my buffs duration. The first one is broadside, second one is true bearing, third one is ruleless precision, fourth is skull and crossbones, the fifth one is buried treasure, and the last one is grand melee. So it's pretty much in this order. I'm sorry if this is too confusing. So I had 2 buffs, 2 good ones that I want to keep, and this one is just whatever. And then I used my keep it rolling to extend them. Now they all are gonna behave like count the odds buffs. And then right after that, when this buff dropped below 39, I rolled again. I didn't get lucky enough to get any new buffs, I just got the same grand melee, and this one got override. But the thought process behind this was because it dropped below 39, so I can safely press my roll the bones again, and I can guarantee myself I will not lose anything. And also, I met the condition of 1. All buffs are below 39, and 2. I do not have all of broadside, skull and crossbones, and true bearing, because in this case, I only had broadside and true bearing. So I pressed my roll the bones, hoping I can get something else, a new buff. Because those 2 conditions were met. That's the thought process. Now, we know how to manage our buffs. Let's talk about some talents. So for Phantom Hammer, we have different usage for keep it rolling and any ambush builds. For any keep it rolling builds, we want to spend our Phantom Hammer stacks when we are at 0 to 3 CP. And then the reason why we want to spend it at 3 is because it's gonna avoid us from putting ourselves in bad situations. So imagine we are at 3 stacks with 3 combo points. In this case, you might say, hey, why don't I just build, finish, and then spend my stacks so I lose less combo point efficiency. In the perfect world, yes. In the perfect world, if you Sinister Strike 3 to 4 times without getting any procs, you can finish and then spend your 3 stacks. But imagine if we Sinister Strike here and it procs and it's gonna give us 2 combo points, and we are gonna end up having 6 stacks. In this case, we either have to force a bad finisher with 5 CP, or we spend 3 stacks here and lose way more combo point efficiency than we want to. However, if we follow this rule strictly, that bad situation is rarely gonna happen. Like a situation like 6 stacks at 4 or 5 CP is rarely gonna happen if we follow this rule. And for any ambush builds, we want to spend our Phantom Hammer stacks as long as we don't have any Audacity procs in hand, and none of the finishing rules have been met yet. Even if we are at 3 stacks with 5 combo points, in this case we would still want to spend our Phantom Hammer here. You might say, hey, am I not gonna lose so much combo point efficiency if I do that? Technically yes, but combo point efficiency in this build, it's not as important as it is in Keep It Rolling builds, because getting back into the loop of using Phantom Hammer and then using ambush from Audacity, getting this feedback loop ASAP has much more value than optimizing combo point efficiency in this build. So keep that in mind. As long as we don't have Audacity proc in hand and we're not meeting any finishing rule, we would always want to send our Phantom Hammer stacks. And then for when we are under Dance or Dreadblade, we have some specific rules when we are under these 2 cooldowns as well, which I will be talking about when I'm explaining these 2 CDs. The next, we are gonna talk about ambush or Audacity usage. So for any ambush builds, ambush with Audacity proc is always the builder with the highest priority. We should be looking to use it as soon as possible, as long as the finishing rule is not met. So with ambush builds, building with Audacity procs is king. It always takes the highest prio. And then for Keep It Rolling builds, for example this build, which is the pure single target build for Keep It Rolling, we do take Audacity, Dance, and Find Weakness. And for a build like this, we only use Audacity procs when we are in need to extend the Find Weakness buff. So we are not gonna spend every single Audacity proc. We are gonna be wasting a lot of the procs because we're gonna be constantly spending Phantom Hammer stacks. We only use the ambush to extend the debuff on your target of Find Weakness when we need to, just to keep up the debuff. And lastly, if we are under Dance or Subterfuge, we would like to only use ambush to build. However, especially for Dance, there is some rules regarding Fender Hammer, depending on what talents we're taking, which I will be talking about in the dance section. And then in this section, we are gonna discuss about finishers. For finishers, our priority is gonna be Between the Eyes, followed by Slice and Dice, and then Dispatch. We should be using them in this order as long as their conditions are met. So for Between the Eyes, we want to use it on cooldown unless our green skin buff is already active. So if Between the Eyes is off CD and I have the green skin buff, I should look to consume the buff, and then I send my Between the Eyes after. And then for Slice and Dice, we want to keep it up at all times. Pretty straightforward. But if we are talented into Swift Lasher, we should always use it at max combo point. And then lastly, for Dispatch, if we don't meet any conditions of using Between the Eyes and Slice and Dice, then we spend our combo points on Dispatch, as long as we're meeting the finishing rules. And finally, we can start talking about CD's usage. So, for AR, we're taking it in every single build, and we should be looking to use it on CD. We should never try to hold it to line it up and kind of force it and try to line it up with some other CDs. We should never try to do that. As long as we can press it, we should just press it as soon as possible. And if you're talented into improved AR, which is the talent that we usually take in Keep It Rolling builds, we should be using it at 0 to 2 combo points. And also, with this talent, AR is gonna give us full combo points when it ends as well. So be prepared for the max CP generated when it ends. For Ghostly Strike, we want to use it when the debuff on a target is less than or equal to 4 seconds, which is the pandemic range. If you're not familiar with what pandemic range is, essentially is basically, let's say for Ghostly Strike, the default duration of it is 10 seconds. But if your target has 1 second left on it and you reapply it, that 1 second is gonna get add up and it's gonna make it 11. And if your target has 4 seconds left on it and you reapply it, it's gonna get extended to 14 seconds. However, if it has 5 seconds left on it, it's only gonna go up to 4 seconds. So 4 seconds is pretty much the pandemic range of Ghostly Strike. So for example, in this video, I'm tracking my Ghostly Strike here. I use my Ghostly Strike. It has 9 seconds left on it, and this number at the bottom right corner is the cooldown of my Ghostly Strike. The top left one is the duration. So right now it's 9 seconds left on it. I ram it down. See, now it has 4 seconds left on it. And then I use it again when it was at roughly 3 or 2 seconds left, and it got extended to 12. So we can play around, so we actually have a bigger room to play around when we want to keep up Ghostly Strike on our target. And then we don't want to use it when there's 3 or more targets. However, if there's a very dangerous mob that you want it to die ASAP, or there's a target with a lot more health, then technically you can still apply Ghostly Strike on it, so it's gonna die quicker, but overall damage wise it's a DPS loss. On top of that, we don't want to use Ghostly Strike when we are under Subterfuge. However, it's okay to use it when we are under Shadowdance. Then for ER, we want to use it on CD as long as casting it is not gonna overcap us on combo points. pretty straightforward. And then for Blade Rush, we want to use it when we are roughly below 70 or 80 energy. However, if you're under PI or Haze, you probably don't need to cast it because you have a lot of extra energy regeneration. TLDR, we're only using it for energy. And then for Killing Spree, we are also only using it when we are at very low energy. So we are not gonna be casting Killing Spree very often, that's normal. And also be aware that we're gonna get animation locked when we are in the animation of Killing Spree, unless you make a macro to cancel it. So pay extra attention and make sure you're safe before using it. And also for both Killing Spree and Blade Rush, make sure you have Blade Fury active if there's 2 or more targets, because if you have Blade Fury active when you use these 2 spells, they are gonna cleave for 100% of their damage. And for Sepsis, you want to use it on CD as long as your Sepsis target is gonna live more than 10 seconds. Then for Dreadblade, we want to use it basically whenever it's up, as long as these conditions are met. So we want to use it when we are at 0 to 2 combo points. And then we are only gonna spend our Fender Hammer stacks when we are at 6. So for example, if we are under Dreadblade and we're at 3, we would want to ignore it, keep using other builders and finish. However, if we're at 6, we want to spend it and keep doing our rotation. And then lastly, we tend to spend a little bit more energy than usual under Dreadblade, so I would recommend pay extra attention to your energy before popping Dreadblade. If you're at very low energy, what I like to do is just wait for a few seconds so you can pull some energy before entering your Dreadblade window. And then lastly, we want to avoid using Roll the Bones when we are under Dreadblade. So in our Dreadblade window, even if we dropped our Roll the Bones, we would be ignoring it, and then we would press Roll the Bones after the Dreadblade window ended. Now we are gonna talk about Shadowdance. The usage of Shadowdance is a little bit more trickier than most of our CDs. It's heavily depending on what are the talents that we are taking. So first thing is when we are under Shadowdance, we do benefit from the double chance of getting Count the Odds procs. So instead of 20, when we're under Dance, instead of 20%, we actually have 40% chance to get Count the Odds procs from using Dispatch and Ambush. And given that, first I'm going to talk about when do we want to use our Shadowdance. For any ambush builds, we want to use it when we don't have an Audacity proc in hand, and we have 0 Fender Hammer stacks in hand. So we're basically using it when we're completely dry. And then for Keep It Rolling in general, we want to use it ASAP on CD. And also, we should aim to always use Dance right before we use a Dispatch. So what we are gonna do is build, Dance, Dispatch with Keep It Rolling builds. In general, we want to use it on cooldown, but if your Keep It Rolling is gonna be back up in roughly 2 minutes, and then because of Restless Blades, it's actually gonna be up very soon, maybe like 30 seconds or 40 seconds, depending on your RNG and what buffs you have currently in hand. So if Keep It Rolling is coming back up in roughly 2 minutes, I would recommend holding it. And then when Keep It Rolling is gonna be back up, and wait until it's gonna be back up at maybe roughly 20 seconds, then you can pop Dance, keep spamming ambush and then dispatch, and then by the time your dance end, keep it rolling is gonna be back up, and then you can use keep it rolling to extend all the count the odds buff you get from Shadowdance. Then also in general, we want to use ambush as much as possible when we're under dance. However, there's a twist regarding Fender Hammer stacks management. The twist is here. So this section is going to be talking about how do we use our finishers and how do we manage our Fender Hammer stacks during our dance window. So for any keep it rolling builds, we are only gonna use dispatch to spend combo points, and then we are gonna ignore our Fender Hammer stacks as well. And lastly, we do not want to use Vanish when we are under dance, because if you use Vanish under dance, you are technically overlapping the double chance of getting count the odds procs. We want to use Vanish after or right before our dance window. If both Vanish and dance are both up, what I would recommend doing is you build Vanish, dispatch, build, dance, and then dispatch. And then for ambush builds without count the odds, we can use any finishers following the conditions that I mentioned earlier in the guide in our dance window. And we use Fender Hammer stacks when we are at 6, as long as the finishing rules are not met. So if we're at 6 and 4 combo points, what we would want to do is we spend 3 stacks, get back to 3, finish, and then sit on 3 stacks and going back to ambushing again. And then with ambush builds with count the odds, we want to only use dispatch to dump our combo points, because we want to maximize count the odds as much as possible when we're under dance. And we are gonna ignore our Fender Hammer stacks. So even if we are at 6 stacks, we would still keep ambushing and using finishers and ignore our Fender Hammer, and so we can fish for more buffs. Vanish, we also use it differently depending on our builds. For ambush builds, there's 3 conditions that we have to meet before using our Vanish. So the first one is we always want to follow our Vanish with an ambush, and we are only gonna use it when doing so it's not going to overcap us on combo points. So ambush itself is gonna give us 2 combo points, and then with this talent, which is improved ambush, it's gonna give us 1 extra one. So if we are at 5 or more combo points, we don't want to use our Vanish and ambush. And if we're broadside as well, because broadside is gonna give us 1 more combo point on top of that, so it's gonna give us 4 total. So if we're broadside active, we don't want to do the Vanish ambush combo when we are at 4 or more combo points. So this is the first condition. The second condition is we're only gonna cast Vanish when we don't have an Audacity proc in hand. And the third one is we are only gonna use our Vanish when we are at 0 to 3 Fender Hammer stacks. And then for Vanish usage for keep it rolling builds, it also heavily depends on what other talents that we're taking. So for keep it rolling builds without Find Weakness and Keep It Rolling build with Find Weakness and Audacity, we want to use it on CD, and we always want to follow our Vanish with a dispatch as long as we meet the finishing rules. And then for Keep It Rolling builds with Find Weakness and no Audacity, we don't want to use it on CD. We only want to use it to extend the Find Weakness debuff on our target. Hence, we are always going to be using our Vanish, following it by an ambush. I assume it's pretty straightforward for this part. However, if you're questioning why do we always want to use Vanish this patch and we are not doing ambush with these setups, it's because one, this patch causes way less energy than ambush, and two, Sinister Strike has way more value than ambush in these setups, because Sinister Strike have a chance to proc Fender Hammers, which in turn is a lot of damage and combo points. However, ambush is only gonna give us flat combo point 2 to 3 depending on your buffs, and they ambush and dispatch, they're both gonna proc county odds anyway. So, and then for this patch, it's something we have to cast anyway. So instead of spending a global on ambush, we would like to spend globals on Sinister Strike instead. That's why we always want to use Vanish this patch instead of Vanish ambush for these setups. Very last cooldown that we're going to talk about is T. For T, it's pretty straightforward. For T, you want to use it when we are at lower than 50 energy, and that's the only rule. However, let's say there's something we can play around the timer. Well, let's say we are fighting a raid boss, and let's say if the boss is dying very soon, then obviously you can feel free to chain the mastery buff so you don't sit on stacks when the boss dies and waste efficiency of the talent. And also, let's say in M+ in keys, if there's you can foresee that there's like maybe like a decent amount of traveling time or downtime in between packs, it probably won't be a bad idea to use like one of them, so you put it on cooldown so you get more value out of the talent. We went over all the conditions of using all the talents and CDs, and here is the priority of using any spells that generate combo points. So it's gonna be Ghostly Strike, ER, Sepsis, Ambush, Pistol Shot with Fender Hammer, and then Sinister Strike. Now, this is pretty simple, you can keep it in your head, but then this is all assuming the conditions for each spell are met. So if you go to Ghostly Strike, it's your highest prio, but let's say if you're at 7 combo points already, it doesn't meet, that means the conditions of using Ghostly Strike is not met. Then we move on and jump to the next one. So to show you like roughly what's the thought process is, it's gonna be something like this. So in this clip, I was playing with the Keep It Rolling build with ER. So right here, I'm at 1 combo point. I'll do it like this. There you go. There you go. I'm at 1 combo point. Now, if I go over the list, I don't even have Ghostly Strike, so we skip to the next one. Is ER up? ER is not up. ER is still on a 35 seconds cooldown, and then I don't have Sepsis in this build, and then Ambush, but we're never ambushing on this build except in the opener, because if you look back at the condition for this build, we are always gonna be using Vanish into Dispatch, so we skip. So For Fender Hammer, we want to use it as 0 to 3 combo points, right? But then we don't have any Fender Hammer stacks at this moment. So what do? We Sinister Strike. I Sinister Strike 1, get the 2, Sinister Strike 2, and that gave me a proc, and that brought me to 5 combo points, and it gave me Fender Hammer stacks. Now if you look at the list, ER is not up, we don't have Gold Sea Strike, we don't have Sepsis, we're not using Ambush. Now we look at Fender Hammers. If we look at Fender Hammer, we're supposed to use it as 0 to 3 combo points, right? Do we meet the condition? We don't. So what do? We Sinister Strike again. Boom. We Sinister Strike again to max Finish, and then we send the Fender Hammer because we were at 2 combo points right there. Right here. I was at 2 combo points with 6 stacks. Go over the conditions. The first one that meet all the conditions is Fender Hammer. So right here, I pistol shot, get to full, and finish again. This is pretty much the thought process for this. And this also applies to all the CDs that we are going to use as well. Now here is the openers for different builds. Do be aware that in our opener, we are also meeting all the conditions of using each cooldown or spell. So for Keep It Rolling with ER, we go in Stealth, we press AR, and then because of improved AR talent, this AR is gonna give us max combo points. We roll in Stealth as well, and then also Slice and Dice in Stealth. And then we break our Stealth with Ambush, and then squeeze in a Blade Fury here after Ambush if we're cleaving, and the ER between the eyes, build until we meet the finishing roll, and then Vanish Dispatch. And then for Keep It Rolling build with Dreadblade and Dance, we do the same thing at the start. We do these 4 from Stealth to Slice, we do these in Stealth. We Ambush, Blade Fury if we are cleaving, and then build until we meet the finishing rules between the eyes. And then starting at this point, we start shipping our CDs while at the same time meeting all their conditions. We Dreadblade to max, Vanish Dispatch, build, and then Dance, Dispatch. And then for the remaining of your dance window, we just keep spamming Ambush until we meet the finishing roll, and then spend our combo point with Dispatch. And then at the end of dance, if we meet the conditions of using Keep It Rolling, we press it. And then for any ambush builds with Subterfuge, with Stealth, AR, roll, and then do aware that because in any ambush builds, we're not taking improved AR talent, so this AR is not gonna give us any combo points. And then also, just a side note, we're pressing AR before we roll. It's because of the loaded dice talent, because after we press AR, we're guaranteed to get a double buff from a roll, so that's why we're doing that in each opener. So with Stealth, AR, roll, Ambush, and then if you're not talented in the Subterfuge, you Blade Fury, build between the eyes, build Slice, and then we squeeze in Gold Sea Strike whenever, as long as the condition of using Gold Sea Strike is being met. So we just want to squeeze in Gold Sea Strike ASAP while meeting its condition. And then if you are talented into Subterfuge, you would want to press your Blade Fury before your ambush. So the first global from stealth is gonna be Blade Fury if you are talented into subterfuge, otherwise we press it after our ambush. And then here, I'm gonna talk about some min-maxing that I personally like to do, but this is completely optional. The DPS difference between doing this and not, it's very minor, so don't even worry about, or don't even think about any of these if it's too much. The first thing is I tend to avoid using Ghostly Strike before I send my Phantom Hammer stacks, because yeah, with any ambush builds we tend to waste a lot of combo points anyway, but if we do this we can have a high chance to avoid losing even more combo points efficiency. So for example, let's say if we have 3 Phantom Hammer stacks. Okay, so with 3 Phantom Hammer stacks, it's guaranteed to fill up our combo points. So if I use my Ghostly Strike here, and then I send a Phantom Hammer here, I'm just wasting 1 more combo point. And again, it's barely anything. But let's say, so what I like to do is I try to use it, basically avoid using it before I send Phantom Hammer. For instance, when would I like to send the Ghostly Strike is, let's say I have 3 stacks and I have Audacity proc in hand. Let's say I have Broadside as well. So with all this condition, my highest prio is sending the Audacity, right? So with ambush itself, it's gonna give us 2 combo points. With Broadside, it's gonna give us 1 extra, and then with improved ambush talent, it's gonna give us 4. Right? So if I use my Ghostly Strike here instead, I pretty much avoid using it before I use my Phantom Hammer. So if I Ghostly Strike here, what's gonna happen is Ghostly Strike with Broadside is gonna give me 2 points, and then I send my Audacity, which gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, then I finish. So I basically use the Ghostly Strike without losing any combo points efficiency, or we can do it the other way around. If I use my Audacity first, 1, 2, it gives me 4, and then I use my Ghostly Strike here, 1, 2, then I finish. So this is like a very small optimization on combo points, because, you know, if I use Ghostly Strike here, 1, 2, and I send Phantom Hammer, boom, 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 and it's gonna, you know, I'm gonna overkill way more. So, and not to mention that we have a 4-second pandemic window to play around with Ghostly Strike, so there's a lot of room to play around that. And the second one is for the anima charges with RC, which is this talent right here. So ER is gonna give us 1 charge, with RC it's gonna give us 2 more, so we got 3 charges in total. And then when we use a damaging finisher on these combo points, it counts as 7. Technically you can use it whenever you like, but if you look at our kit, something that have good synergy with those anima charged combo points are, 1 is True Bearing, because if we spend an anima charge without True Bearing, it's gonna give us 7 seconds of cooldown. But if we spend it with True Bearing, it's gonna give us 3.5 seconds more for each charge. Right, so we basically get a little bit more cooldown out of spending our charge, just a very small optimization. And then on the other hand, with this talent, if we spend it when we are at high dispatch stacks, we get a little bit more damage from the charges as well. So what I usually like to do is I spend my charge when this talent is at 4 or 5 stacks. But the baseline, or the most important part of using this talent, is we never want to leave any combo points charges unspent, because if you look at this, they don't last forever. If I use my ER here, if you look at these, they only last for 45 seconds, which is exactly the cooldown of ER. Once the cooldown of my ER is coming back up, these charges are gonna expire. So spending all of them in time is your highest prio. If you can afford it, try to follow these two, but again, it's completely optional. And then lastly is for green skin wickers, which is this talent. The buff only lasts for 15 seconds. So for some reason, if there's downtime or you get super unlucky, you don't get any Fender Hammer Stacks procs to consume your green skin wickers buff, what you can do is at the very last second of your green skin's buff, you can use a pistol shot without any Fender Hammer procs. It is a very small gain, it's like 0.1% or even less, but this is something you can keep in mind. If there's downtime, you get super bad RNG, you can play around to optimize it. Now that we know how to manage our buffs with Keep It Rolling builds, let's talk about how do we use Roll the Bones with ambush builds. For any ambush builds, we want to reroll any single buff except Skull and Crossbones. This is the only single buff that we want to keep. And then for double buffs, we want to reroll any double buffs that contains Grand Melee except the combination of Grand Melee and Skull and Crossbones. And with loaded dice, we follow the same rule for this one, for this part. Even with loaded dice up, we would still want to keep a single buff of Skull and Crossbones. If we have this buff, we would wait until it expires and then we reroll again. And also, for double buffs, we want to, when loaded dice is active, we want to reroll any double buffs that contains Grand Melee except this combination at the bottom. And then in this very last part in the guide, I'm gonna do like a rotation demonstration, and then I'm gonna try to explain my thought process along the way. And then right here you see I put the corresponding buffs right below my buff trackers. So this one is Broadside, this one is True Bearing, Ruthless Precision, Skull and Crossbones, Buried Treasure, and Grand Melee. So let's see this. So in this clip, I was playing with this build, which was Keep It Rolling with RC. And then before we pull, I talked about it in the opener. What we should be doing is I go in stealth, and I should be using AR, roll, and then slice. Okay, let's see. I AR, roll, slice. And then I start to pull with ambush, and I immediately lay Fury. And then I should send my ER, because it's up, we should be using it as soon as possible. I ER to 6, and now if you look at the buffs that I had True Bearing, Buried Treasure, and Grand Melee, right? So we are only gonna finish at 6 with Broadside or RP up. So in this case, I should squeeze in one more Sinister Strike, hit max, and then use my Between the Eyes. Let's see. A Sinister Strike Between the Eyes. Now what I should be doing is build to max, and then Vanish, Dispatch. I have 3 stacks of Thunder Hammer from my last Sinister Strike. I spend it, Vanish, Dispatch. Now at this point, I should be, since I already put all my cooldowns on CD, my next one should be looking for the right moment to use my Keep It Rolling. I'm at 2 CP, I land on an Anima Charge, I used it, Sinister Strike to 2, Sinister Strike again to 4, and then I consume that charge. Consume that charge, Sinister Strike again, it gave me a proc, and then it gave me 4 combo points right here. And then what I should be doing here is, although I have 3 stacks, but I shouldn't be using it because I'm only supposed to use them at 0 to 3 combo points. So I should be building again a Sinister Strike build to max, and then right here, if you go back a little bit, now you see my Between the Eyes is up, and I didn't have green skin. I don't have the green skin active. So what I should be doing is using Between the Eyes. Between the Eyes, see, here is where I track my green skin. I Between the Eyes, spend my combo points. Now I'm sitting at 6 stacks of Thunder Hammer. I should be using them. I use 3, finish, and then I refresh my Blade Fury because it was dropping. Now you see I was trying to refresh my Blade Fury last second. Let's go back a little bit here. I'm sorry. So I had 2 seconds left on my Blade Fury. I finish, I instantly refresh it at the very last second. Now my Blade Fury lasts 13 seconds again, and its cooldown it's 30. And then I Thunder Hammer, finish, Sinister Strike again to 5, Sinister Strike again to max. Now you see my AR is expiring in 0.9 seconds. So right here in this situation, what I should be doing is I should finish and then wait until my AR expired, get the full combo points from that, and then I spend it again. Right here, boom. And then my AR was at 0.1. It instantly filled up my combo points again. Now let's go back a little bit to look at my Keep It Rolling. Now right here, I had 2 Bearing and Roller's Precision. So technically, these 2 buffs already met the conditions of using Keep It Rolling. Now you see I used it right here. I extended it, now they all behave like Count the Odds, like I mentioned earlier in the guide. Doing my rotation, AR is expiring soon, boom, I wait, and it instantly gave me full combo points. I spent it on Between the Eyes. Right here. Okay, if you go back here, you see my Between the Eyes is up, I don't have green skin. I use my combo points on Between the Eyes, now my green skin is back up again. And then I use my pistol shot, Thunder Hammer stacks, and I consumed the buff. Now, if you look at all my buffs, I have 3 buffs from Keep It Rolling. They are all gonna drop below 39, and I don't have all of Broadside, True Bearing, and Skull and Crossbones. So at this point, I should be looking to repress my Roller Bones again. I think I did delay it a little bit. which wasn't optimal, but I think, yeah, right here, I rerolled. See, right here. I rerolled, and that one that rolled the bones gave me skull and crossbones. So now I get 4 buffs. Now, just doing my rotation, Blade Fury is dropping at 3 stacks, finishing rule is not met, I shouldn't be using my Fender Hammer stacks. Vanish is up, so what I should be doing here is Vanish, dispatch, and then instantly refresh my Blade Fury, or I refresh my Blade Fury first. See, I use my Blade Fury, Vanish, dispatch, spend my Fender Hammer, boom, and then spend the Fender Hammer again, and then Greenskin was getting consumed. Between the Eyes is back up again. Between the Eyes, Fender Hammer, and then finish. Now, after I use the finisher, because AR is back up again, and pressing AR is gonna give me full combo points. So what I should be doing here is I finish, press my AR, and then finish again. Let's see. I finish, press my AR, got loaded dice, press my AR, finish again. And I spent, and then I Sinister Strike to 5, Sinister Strike again, finish, use my Fender Hammer, like right here, finish. Now, my Between the Eyes was at a 9 seconds cooldown. I used a dispatch right here, and it got back up. And then I didn't have green skin, so what I should be doing is building again, use Between the Eyes again. I build, and then Between the Eyes. And then from this point, it's just like rinse and repeat, everything stays the same. Follow finishing rules, follow your buffs management rules, and then follow all the conditions of using all your buttons, and pretty much it. And if you guys want to, I can play. Feel free to watch the remaining of the rotation, and here we go. And then this next clip is gonna be with this build, which is the M+ build with the Ambush and Shadowdance. And I was also talented in the Subterfuge as well. So let's see. So since I was talented in the Subterfuge, my opener should be AR roll. And then before I use anything, I should use my Blade Fury first to break my stealth after rolling. So right here, I AR and then roll, Blade Fury, and then I use my Subterfuge window to use as much ambush as possible. So I ambush to max, Between the Eyes, ambush again, and then I should use Slice because I didn't have it. Slice, and then I use 3 Fender Hammer stacks, and then I got an Audacity prop, And so what I should be looking to do at this point is use a dispatch, spend all my combo points, and then spend my Audacity with ambush. So I dispatch, and then use my stack. And then after I use my Audacity, I landed on the 5th combo point. So now what I should be doing, because I have yet to meet any finishing rules, and then I had 3 stacks. So what I should be doing is sending these 3 stacks to meet the finishing rule. Send it, got an Audacity proc again, so I should be finishing Audacity again, and then between the eyes is up, between the eyes, and then since I'm at 3 stacks right now without any Audacity, so I met the condition to use ambush right here. So I ambush, I meant vanish, my bad. And right here, I was at 3 stacks, no Audacity, so I met the condition to use vanish. So I vanish, ambush. Although I was still under subterfuge, but I was kept on stacks, so I should look to dump the stacks ASAP. Finish. I dumped 3 stacks, got Audacity again, and then spend it, got to max, finish, spend the stacks again, between the eyes was up, used it again, and then Audacity again, and then that ambush brought me to 4, and then finishing rule has not been met yet, so I should spend these 3 stacks. There you go. Build to max. Use my Audacity now. After I spend that Audacity, I'm completely dry. I have no Audacity proc in hand, and then I had no Fender Hammer stacks. So what else can I do? I have Shadowdance. Shadowdance is a tool to save us when we are completely dry. So I dance, ambush to max, and that ambush gave me 3 stacks. So if you look at the conditions again, under dance we shouldn't be using any Fender Hammer stacks if we're at 3. So I finish, ignore these stacks, keep using my ambush. 1, 2, so right here, after I use a dispatch, ambush, that ambush brought me to 5. I haven't met the finishing rule yet, so I should ambush again. Boom. Finish, ambush again to max. Now I'm at 6 stacks. Between the eyes is up, between the eyes. Now I dump my stacks again. And this is pretty much the whole rotation for this build. Optimizing your procs, follow the finishing rules. If you're cleaving, keep up Blade Fury, and then whenever we meet the condition to use Vanish or Dance, just ship it so we can get more procs. And then lastly, this is a clip of me doing single target damage with the single target build for Keep It Rolling, which is this one. So I was talented into Keep It Rolling, Dance, and also Audacity. So something we need to pay attention to playing this build is follow rules for Keep It Rolling, Dance ASAP, unless Keep It Rolling is coming back up soon, so we might want to hold it for a little bit for the next Keep It Rolling. DB pretty much on CD when we are at 0 to 2 combo points, and then always use Vanish followed by a dispatch, and then we are only using our Audacity proc when Find Weakness is dropping on our target. I'm just gonna show the clip I'm probably not gonna talk it through for every global, but I did make a few mistakes in the clip, which I will point it out when that happens. So here you go. Now right here, right after I use my keep it rolling, if you look at the buffs, I had everything except True Bearing. And all the buffs, as long as all the buffs are at below 39, I should be pressing my Roll the Bones again so I can get a chance to get True Bearing. I think I didn't press it in time, I was delaying it for too long, so let's see. Now everything is below 39, I should be pressing my Roll the Bones ASAP. But then I got a CTO proc, so technically I don't have to. And then right here, you see, Find Weakness on my target had 1 second left. So this is the moment to use my Audacity proc right here. There, I use my ambush, and then extend Find Weakness on my target. And then I did delay the Roll the Bones. I don't even remember if I pressed it, but I should be pressing it to fish for a True Bearing right here. I did. Okay. I delayed it for a couple seconds. It wasn't too bad, that's fine. So now I'm at 2 combo points. DB and Vanish are both up. So if I want to ship them both ASAP, while also meeting all the conditions, what I should be doing is DB, Vanish, Dispatch. Right? Like this. DB, Vanish, Dispatch. Now, pay attention to here is I was at 3 stacks, I was under DB, so I shouldn't be using these stacks. I should be only spending Fender Hammer when I'm at 6. So here I ignored it, built Finish, and then this Sinister Strike gave me 3 more stacks, so now I'm capped. So after spending these combo points, what I should be doing is spend my Fender Hammer. There. I mean, I use my AR get to max, and then I use my Fender Hammer, but it's the same. It's even better to use my AR first, because if I use Fender Hammer, finish, and then I use AR afterwards, I'm losing value of my AR. And then it's also with this build, sometimes you will drop Find Weakness on your target in your DB window, but it's fine. It's as long as you keep up like 90% or more uptime Find Weakness on your target, then it's fine. Now I reapplied it, and then just keep doing my rotation. You might be aware that I have like a lot of buffs, but then not. I mean, my RNG wasn't too bad in this clip, but then this build is meant to swim in buffs because of Count the Odds, because of Shadowdance, because of Vanish, with so much tool to get the extra chance to proc Count the Odds. And then right here, I think I made a mistake as well. Right here, you see? My AR was gonna expire in 0.7 seconds. I was at full combo points. What I should have done is I finish and then wait until it expire, build so it gives me full combo point, and then finish again. But I wasn't paying enough attention to it, so I lost a global and I cast Sinister Strike at the same time when my AR expired. So right here I finish. I should be waiting because it just expired. The timing was perfect, but I wasn't aware of that. See, it gave me full combo points and then I used the Sinister Strike. So that was my mistake right here. Fine Weakness is dropping, I should be reapplying it. There you go. And then you probably realize my Rotor Bones was dropping right here. Technically, you might like, hey, why don't you reroll? But because, one, our rule is DB under Dreadblade, even we're dropping Rotor Bones, we ignore it. We should be looking to play our whole Dreadblade window and not spending any GCDs on rerolling. So even if these buffs expired like 5 seconds into my Dreadblade, I would be still ignoring them, play my whole Dreadblade window, and then reroll after. There. And then right here, I kinda made a mistake as well. Right here. I danced Dispatch, which was fine, but because Ambush causes a lot of energy, so especially with this build, if you're about to dance, try to pay extra attention to energy level, because Ambush causes a lot of energy, so a lot of times you might be starving on it. So I didn't pay attention to that. I popped my dance at 60 energy, which was kinda low. What I should have done is I wait for maybe 2 seconds, get a little bit more energy, and then I dance, and then dispatch, and then play my dance window. You see right here, I pop my dance, and then I was dry. So I was losing global on ambush. Yep, and this is pretty much it. Actually, I'll just play the remaining part. Enjoy. And then this is pretty much it. If there is any further updates on class optimization, later in the future, I will update it in the top comment of this video. And if you want to look at the sims for all 3 rogue specs with pretty much the best gears, feel free to look at this spreadsheet. It includes all 3 rogue specs. Big shout out to Fu from the Rogue Discord. He created this spreadsheet, which is very useful. I will link it in the video description. And shout out to all the theory crafters in the Rogue Discord as well. They pay a lot of effort in optimizing the spec. I learned a lot from them. And lastly, shout out to my GM, Trynexx. He helped me chaining my clips and doing some video editing for me, because I don't know anything about that. Without him, the guide wouldn't even be possible. If you like the video, show him some love, follow him on Twitch. I will link his Twitch channel and also YouTube channel in the video description as well. And that's pretty much it. If you like the guide, follow me on Twitch, give me a like, sub to my YouTube channel, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. I will try my best to answer them all. And that's it. I will see you guys next time. Cheers.